We are in for a treat, everyone. Go sit down. We have Dennis Harness. He is a jewel of Sedona, probably our most famous astrologer in Sedona. He is an author. He has some of his books here. Definitely come check them out after. He's a psychologist. He has a PhD. He's a lecturer. He ran the Vedic Astrology Conference in Sedona for the last 30 years. I don't know anyone in Sedona that committed. That's beautiful. Come and have a seat, everybody.
Let's turn this one on.
That one's on.
Good.
Yeah,
All
we're
right.
ready to go.
Well, I thought we could start off with a mantra for Lord Ganesha. He is, as you probably know, the elephant head god that removes obstacles, but he also puts obstacles in our way so we don't go down roads that maybe aren't so good. So it's really a simple mantra. It's just Om Gam Ganapate Namaha. Okay, I'll just do it 3 times. Om Gam Ganapate Namaha. Om Gam Ganapate Namaha. Om Gam Ganapate Namaha. And we also invoke Saraswati, who's the goddess of learning. I love Ganesha too because I think he's really represents to me the androgyny of bringing the feminine and the masculine together. And I was thinking of Merriman's class and her name, I don't know if she's here still, but she's back there. But I'll say this, is that to me Merriman is that she's helping men to evolve their anima, their inner feminine, to help them grow. So I honor her for that. Now we got a lot going on today. I'm going to try to pack in as much as I can in the hour, but we haven't really talked about it yet, but Cassie and I are thinking about putting the class together, kind of really basics of Vedic astrology, maybe a 6-hour class over the course of several weeks. And that would be, I think, good for us. Maybe end of October, after Cassie comes for her death rebirth experience. And she's done such an awesome job, so let's give her a big hand. Yeah, she is just rocking it, as we like to say in India, Sat Nam, rock on. Anyway, I better get to this talk. I changed actually the title of the talk because I was turning it into this group, and it's obvious that what we're trying to do, at least I'm trying to do, is integrate the 2 systems. Because I believe strongly that both systems have their truth, as I mentioned the other day. Chinese astrology is awesome, Mayan astrology, galactic, all these different systems. And they're like looking at a diamond from different angles, different points of view. So they're all reflections of our divine self. So my idea with this is to try to bring the unity and the diversity and bring these together. Now, there is a big issue, though, that does come up with Vedic astrology, is that it's based on the sidereal zodiac. And I forgot to ask, how many of you have studied Vedic astrology? Okay, awesome. How many of you actually had a consultation with the Vedic astrologer? Okay, most of the group. Okay, great. Just trying to tune into where the group's at. So the idea is that Vedic astrology is based on the sidereal zodiac, which is more of an astronomer's point of view. So actually sidereal, and this is a joke, if you look at the word sidereal, the last 4 letters are real. This is the real zodiac. Now, tropical zodiac, amazing because it keeps us in touch with the seasons, with the solstice, the equinox points. And I love Western astrology. My dearest friend is Demetra George, the asteroid goddess. And Hellenistic astrology is awesome. So when she and I used to take people to Egypt and Greece and India together. So anyway, I'm a big fan of hers. So this degree difference for most of us, well, not in this room, but maybe for me, most of us that were born maybe in the 50s, maybe particularly the early 50s, there was about a 23-degree difference between the 2 systems. So what you have to do is subtract the 23 degrees to get to your Vedic chart. I know this is quite an astrological makeover for us to use. Again, you don't have to let go of your tropical chart. As a matter of fact, I usually like to wear shirts from Hawaii just to show that Vedic astrologers can't wear tropical shirts. So, okay, I love humor. This is a stand-up comedy, right? Yes. It's sit-down comedy. Okay, whatever. So anyway, the 24-degree difference is now, in this moment. And what I did, I don't know if you've got the handout yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Tyler, my good buddy's putting together, who's an amazing virtuoso violinist, who's actually going to be on a show, on a major news show coming up, I think next month or within a few weeks, right, Tyler?
Yeah, next week.
Yes. And I'm going to have him serenade us at the end of this lectures as we're going to lunch. So we're in for a big treat with Tyler. But the handouts are this. One is on where the planets are at this moment in time in the Vedic chart. And as I was mentioning the other day, it's just like freaking awesome this week. I've been telling my clients for months, like this is a major segment that I find has a lot of power. And then when I found Cassie was using these dates, I'm like, rock on, you picked it, you nailed it. Because, like for example, as I mentioned, Venus is in Libra in both systems. So, it's really evolved. And when we started, the moon was in Ashwini. Now, the other aspect that was going on too is that the sun, actually, is in Virgo in both systems. So again, that healing energy that comes through as well. As a matter of fact, let me just look at this, because there were so many things that just popped out at me. I guess I will need my readers. Okay, Venus, the sun. The moon, actually today, is in Taurus, the bull. Now I know in Western astrology it's moved on to Gemini, but when we started, moon, I think, was in Taurus, strongly this last day or so. And the moon is applying to Jupiter, so that's nice in both systems. Because one of the things that's similar in both systems are the aspects between the planets. You don't have, it's like, that's what's really good. So, for example, moon is applying to Jupiter, I hope this next day or so. In Vedic astrology, again, it's in sign of Taurus, the bull, which is its exalted or best sign, strong sign. Every sign for the moon is good. It's always, I find even when the moon is, quote, in India they say like the moon is in Scorpio, it's called Nicha, which means like debilitating. However, I don't use that word, although I said it just now. I would say it's challenging, and that the great thing about planets that are even, quote, challenging is they teach humility. They teach humbleness. Because some charts that are so freaking strong, like for example, Vedically, Donald Trump's chart, Hitler's chart. No, okay, didn't say that. But anyway, okay, I'm not making that comparison tonight. But the idea is that powerful doesn't mean powerfully good. So it's like, what point of view do you want to look at this game from, So there's a lot of levels to astrology, as you know. Have any of you read Herman Hesse's book, Magister Ludi, The Glass Bead Game?
I love so.
Yeah. I would highly recommend reading that book. I mean, he wrote Siddhartha, he wrote Journey to the East, a number of books. But Magister Ludi is about learning this game of astral chess. And that's what I think of when I think of astrology. It's like astral chess. Or maybe even deeper causal chess and stress. Okay, so today we have Mercury exalted in Virgo and tropical. In Vedic, it's right on the cusp. It's what we call Sanya. It's right at the very end of the wheel. So I wanted to actually maybe have a couple of you mention I'm sure you all know, like for example, the degree of your moon. Maybe somebody in tropical. Anybody want to? Okay, right? So I was looking at your chart. Okay, so I got a sneak preview there. But for example, her moon moves from Pisces, which is totally valid, into the sign of Aquarius, the humanitarian, the healer. And it's actually really close to these two nakshatras, but we'll talk about that tomorrow. Anyway, in Vedic astrology, we divide the zodiac into 27 segments. I know it's a lot to take on. But the idea is that the planets basically mean the same, pretty much. The houses, 80% mean the same. And the aspects, as I say, are happening in both systems. The other way that the two systems unite is through transits. So if you have Jupiter, benevolent Jupiter, transiting over your ascendant, Vedically, you're going to have it tropically as well. So one of the best books I ever read was by Robert Cannon, Planets in Transit. And Robert, he doesn't talk about zodiacs much in that book at all. He's just talking about transits, because it's happening in both systems. Now granted, there's some different fine-tuning you can do with aspects and things like that. But again, this is another place where they two connect. Another one that I love is astrocartography. I was trained by Jim Lewis back in the early 90s. And I went up to him and I said, Jim, I said, what's the difference if you're using the tropical or sidereal zodiac? And he said, there's no difference. Because you're just looking at planets angularly, you know? So again, it's that one of those systems that really unites Vedic and Western or tropical astrology. So anybody else want to just give their moon tropical?
I was curious about how Vedic astrology divides the zodiac into 27 segments.
Yeah.
It doesn't go into 360 equally.
Oh yeah, it does.
It's
13 degrees and 20 minutes.
Oh. Wow.
This is the best book on the nakshatras, okay? It's written by me. Now, actually,
I like even numbers and even math, so once you start getting
I know, it's
Okay, sorry.
I know. And actually, with the signs and the nakshatras, they're not in these nice little 30-degree bundles anyway, pretend. These constellations, some are bigger, larger. So we're putting an abstract model onto the zodiacal belt. So we have to remember that there is a fudge factor.
Okay.
I always think astrology, as my teacher said, it's 25% technique, 25% intuition, and 50% the grace of God. So I say, I get a little mushy. I say 75% of the equation is Graceland. But the techniques, learn them as best you can. They're amazing, of course, to learn all the techniques and get that grounded. And I like making things interactive, so I really enjoyed your question. And people have something as I'm going through. I'll try to stay focused, but I love to connect with people. Maybe one more moon and then.
Yeah,
What is it?
6 degrees Leo, so it's pusher Cancer.
Yeah, so he's got the best of the 27 nakshatras, Pushya. It's considered the most auspicious because it's connected with the goddess. It's connected with God, actually, is Brahaspati, who's the teacher of the teachers. And it's also where the involution of Christ consciousness came in. You're talking about the crib where Christ was born, comes in. The involution comes in Cancer, and then the exit comes through Capricorn. So it's kind of a rebirth, death energy that happens with that dynamic. So anyway, you got that going for yourself.
Thanks, right.
So we should always hang out with him,
Yeah,
Now, the only problem.
He ascended at the same degree, so it gives me double help.
Well, yeah, that's true. And the thing about electional astrology, which I'll just mention briefly in my lecture, or Muhurta as it's called in India, the one thing about Pushya, you do not want to use that nakshatra for marriage. Because it's so, it's so deep and spiritual, you don't want to domesticate it too much. Okay. Marriage is great, but most of us, have any of you been through a divorce? Hey. Okay, all right, you admit it. Okay, I always say, do not tell my wife I've told this joke. I always say the 3 rings of marriage are the engagement ring, the wedding ring, and then the suffering. Here's my second marriage. First one went up in smoke really quick, 4 years. I should say this because I'm working on a memoir called The Karmic Code. Basically the planetary cycles of the soul. And in the book I'm trying to weave, because it's totally autobiographical. I couldn't make this shit up if I tried, So, the idea is that there is this movement, with each system, and so my teacher Chakrapani, who I met in 1980 when I was 24 years old. I was told about him by Swami Kriyananda, who was a direct disciple of Paramahansa Yogananda. He said, you know, you should go see this guy. And I've been studying tropical astrology for a few years, and I didn't even realize there was a difference, you know? So I went down to get this session, and his name was Chakrapani, he was Swami Muktananda's astrologer, you know? And he came from India, mostly lived in LA, and he came over, I think in 1977, something like that. But one of the first things he said to me is, you will be married twice. I hadn't even been engaged once, you know, a little disconcerting. But sure enough, boom. But anyway, I just wish he would have said, wait, because that's my mantra for a lot of young people is, when in doubt, wait it out. Be patient, go slow. It's just common sense. Most people really don't even know what they really want fully, except you evolved beings, you do, you young ones do. Is that, you know, in terms of, I always think the Saturn return kind of brings this maturity, and then you're kind of more ready to rock and roll into marriage. And the other thing is that having children, in Vedic astrology, you know, there's this, how would you say it, with children? I was mentioning this to someone the other day, it's BC before children. And then AC after children. Then it becomes AC/DC, rock and roll. Okay, I better move on here. Now, I don't know if this works. Maybe you can check it for me. It's working? Oh, it's left and right. Okay. I'm a creative dyslexic. Okay. So, does everybody have that handout of the chart for the day? Because I didn't make a slide of it, I should have. So we'll be talking about that a little bit as we're going through today. It's actually interesting. The rising sign in Vedic is Scorpio. In Western, it's Sag. So Sag is great because it's ruled by Jupiter and all that good juju. But Scorpio, the nakshatra, these 27 nakshatras, is called Anuradha, which is the star of success. And it indicates, Cassie, gathering people together for activities. It's connected with Mitra. So you got that too today. He's the god of friendliness.
Love him.
Now, there are these different civilizations. The one that actually is missing here is kind of funny, because I always did the work with Demetra. You know, we would do these things at Kepler College up in Seattle where we would compare and contrast ancient Hellenistic astrology with Vedic astrology. And there was so much of an overlap between them because the zodiacs actually coincided about 280 AD after Christ. So there wasn't any difference back then. And then slowly, due to the precession, now we're at 24 degrees. So again, I think it's really important to be bilingual or trilingual like you are. You know about 4 systems, really, all that. So anyway, the idea is that it's good to know things and look at the mountain, look at it from different points of view. So these are the ancient civilizations that all had their astrology. Of course, Mesopotamia, who was given the credit for some of the earliest astrology. Egyptian. The Indus Valley civilization is really interesting. It's where modern Pakistan, Afghanistan, and northern Kashmir. And it was only discovered in the 1920s. And there's this beautiful book about it called A Peaceful Realm, The Rise and Fall of the Indus Valley Civilization. And what's so cool about it is that when they uncovered it, it was kind of like ancient Minoan civilization. They could find no spears, no swords, no shields. It was peaceful. So, anyway, beautiful civilization. And it's a coffee table book with pictures, with pictures. Because what good is a book without pictures? Right? That's what Alice in Wonderland said. Okay, moving on. Chinese astrology, as I mentioned, with that, at the introduction of the day, the Chinese astrologer from Hong Kong, who was very famous, speaking in Mandarin, chain smoking like he strikes cigarettes. So it was beautiful. And he read me like a book. He just read me like a book. It was really interesting. He told me, how do you put it? He said, your first wife like clothes and didn't quite fit. You'll meet your second wife very soon. I met her 2 months later. I want to honor Laura, my wife. You know, she's amazing. She is out on the land like Virgilio does. It takes people out on the land for vision quests, and she's a music therapist and sound healer. We actually sometimes, not that much, but every once in a while, I'll pass this around. I don't have copies of it, but her and I sometimes work on creating retreats for people. And they're kind of packaged, usually 2 or 3 days, but really focused on the issues that the client or the couple wants to work on. So anyway, she knows Sedona like the back of her hand. She's amazing. Okay. And the reason I cry a lot is in the Vedic chart, my moon Jupiter's in Cancer, okay? In the 12th house. So whenever I go to a movie, I go by myself. My Kleenex, because my family laughs at me. Oh my God, he's doing it again.
We love
Anyway, you know, I saw this woman once who lectured on yoga for depression. And the first slide in her show was from this yogi from India, crying is the best form of yoga. Got that going for me. Now, Minoan, as we mentioned, amazing civilization, which was a lot of these civilizations were very matriarchal. And then the patriarchy came in and did its thing, and I have to give a plug. I know it's not, maybe you guys don't go with this, but I love Kamala Harris. I think she is one of these women that's going to bring change, and we'll see how it manifests, you know. But I think the cat ladies will bring Trump down. Because one thing about his chart is that he has Saturn-Venus conjunction in both systems. In the Vedic system, we have these planetary periods, there's dashas, where you're under a cycle for a number of years. He happens at the end of this month going into a Venus, is it Venus? No, a Saturn subcycle. And it's gonna last for 3 years. And Saturn is in Venus in its 12th house. So Venus, women, can really bring him down. Get out and vote. Now I know a lot of you love Kennedy or whoever, you know, but at the end of the day, you know, I think there's not much of a choice here. But anyway.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
So I have a question, because I remember when he got the eclipse whenever his ascendant, remember? And I thought, oh, he won't be coming back. So I don't know if that's right, but I have ever met another, like, he that got deposed under the eclipse.
He is one of the most powerful. He has one of the most powerful charts I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But in Vedic, his moon goes into Scorpio, into Jeshta, which is very powerful. He's the chief or senior most. They cannot work for anyone. But it's a challenge. And his Venus is, like I said, is with Saturn. But I do call him Teflon Don, because nothing sticks to that guy. So we still have to be careful, because one of the other predictions, I hope this one isn't right, is that I always say how you can tell who's going to be the president of the United States is who has the worst chart for the next 4 years.
Or in English chart, beginning of March, in English chart, would that be a great way to predict who's coming?
Yeah, it can be. Yeah.
His women was every 10th house, so she's got a really good chance.
You know, Kamala has Rahu right on the ascendant in Gemini, I think in both systems, you know. And Rahu, as my teacher at Chakrapani said, Rahu's the north node of the moon, can bring success like nobody's business, you know. So she's a warrioress. I mean, she is, you know, she's Artemis, she's, you know, Athena, she's all those wrapped into one. I actually want to make this little comment about Vesta, because I love the asteroids. And, you know, Demetrius, like I said, one of my main mentors. Actually, I met her at an asteroid goddess workshop. There were 20 women, and just me. Surrounded by goddesses.
And you were the only one crying.
But it was tears of joy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, Vesta, or Hestia as she's called in Greece, you know, there was this woman named Altani that we had dinner with in Athens. And she was like this amazing scholar, and she had a television program every Sunday morning, and she would talk, Merriman, about one particular goddess or god. So what was going to happen The next day, we were leaving real early that morning. We were going to miss her beautiful presentation on Vesta, or Hestia, you know. So I said to Altani, and you have to be careful, I'm from Missouri, so I can cuss a little bit, so. And she, please forgive me. Okay, but anyway, Hestia, she said, I said, can you give me a download on Hestia? And she said, oh yeah, it's really simple. Don't fuck with my flame. And this woman was like 75 years old, just like, whoa. But it always stuck in my mind. I have Vesta rising, Hestia rising, and our first Pomeranian was Vesta, was named Vesta. Let me see where I want to go with this. We got to get going here. So these civilizations were all pretty close to each other, so there was all this cross-pollination going on, you know, between India, between Egypt, and Mesopotamia, even Crete, or the Minoans. And so a lot of them met along this Ionian coast of Turkey. It was like this melting pot of all these different systems coming together. So there was all this cross-pollination going on early on, like, you know, 1500 BC, or, well, probably with the Greek or Hellenistic a little later, probably 300 BC. That's a book I mentioned by Jane McIntosh. It's just a picture of the Indus Valley. I wanted to show this because this isn't a seal made out, I think it's made out of copper, it could be gold. It's about this big, and it's in the library in Pakistan, in Karachi. And this seal is called the Procession Seal. But if you look at the bottom, there's 7 goddesses, because this seal is connected with the Pleiades. And this is like 2000 BC, this seal, you know. Anyway, I think it's cool. And then what's going on here is the goddess Durga is over there in the upper left corner, and Rudra, the god of storms, or Shiva, is bowing to her. I bow to the goddess. Anyway, I thought that was cool. When I saw it, I was like, whoa, that's cool. So anyway, I'm going to go into this because we need to cover a lot of material, but again, there's this relationship with the Pleiades, and like I said, you could get the book. You'll have to get it. It's out of print, so you'll have to get it through Alvarez or maybe through Amazon.
That's where the moon is tonight, Kritika.
What's that?
That's where the moon is tonight, Kritika.
That's right. Yeah, it's actually just moved. It's in Rohini now.
Oh, it is.
Just shifted into the next nakshatra, which actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because Kritika is connected with the Indus Valley because it's connected with the god Agni, the god of fire. And then we move on to Rohini, and Rohini means the red one. It's connected with the goddess with the Bindi, the third eye. And it's considered very auspicious nakshatra, very positive, a Deva nakshatra. Thanks for bringing that up. This is a really cool little statue there called the Priest King. The Priest King. And he wears a cloak of stars. You know. And so this is real back in the Indus Valley, again, probably 3000 BC, going back. But anyway, probably actually this figure was made around 2000 BC, but it's pretty cool. It's the original astrologer, maybe, of the Indus Valley. And there's some description around him as well. I think, you know, he was actually, it represents the garment of the sky, as I mentioned. He's connected actually with Varuna in Hindu mythology, who was originally a sky god. Varuna was. And then he got demoted into the god of the waters, you know, the ocean, lakes, rivers, streams. And I think he was really happy about that. He said, okay, you know, was it Indra, you take over, you know. So he was happy to be demoted. So it's connected with like Poseidon or Neptune, you know, in terms of Western astrology. Okay, there's Demetra, my good friend. And this was when we were in Egypt at the Temple of Saqqara. That's just a dear friend of mine, Debbie Kyle Levitt, who lives in Kansas City, and where I'm from. And she ran the Astrological Society there, which is one of the oldest astrological societies in the United States. It's been around, I think, 50 years or so. Anyway, but Demetra is she's amazing. She doesn't do consultations anymore. She just teaches. But I think she's going to be down in Phoenix. I know she is. Early October. So there's a conference down
For
there.
that AFA Medical Astrology Conference.
This is the Temple of Saqqara. Actually, the reason I'm bringing this up is a little bit of a promotion. A dear friend of mine in Sedona, she and I are going to take a oh, okay, maybe not. Maybe. The door's open, the door's closed. Well, there is a little problem with Palestine. Israel going on, so I don't know. But anyway, we were thinking about calling it Egypt, what was it called? Something about resurrection. And then I thought, no, we should change it to an awakening, because we don't need to die. I love Jesus, but at the end of the day, I think we have to get off the cross and on with the resurrection. Okay, Saqqara was the oldest temple, or the oldest pyramid built in Egypt, called the Step Pyramid. And it was built by Imhotep, who was a great astrologer, healer, metaphysician, kind of a Renaissance man back then. Anyway, a really cool temple. I'm going to move on from this. There, of course, is the Sphinx, and we see the lion, the lioness, kind of energy connected with the Sphinx as well. Something like powerful. But my favorite temple, let me see if I can get to her, is Sekhmet's chapel. You were mentioning, Merriman, about Sekhmet, She's tough, she's powerful, she is a leader, and she just does not like arrogance or ignorance, She just won't put up with it. So she's kind of like Kali, in her way. But the temple there, of all the places I went, okay, she just came in. Hey, she's a strong one, I'm telling you. Whoa, the boxes are flying and everything. Okay, she's rocking and rolling and ready. Oh my God. Okay, well, I even got the win. Jeez, okay, all right, I'm not going to invoke her anymore. But I love her, she's my favorite. I love her. I won't even close. I love the dark goddesses because really they're the most awesome. They're the most awesome. Kali, they always get a bad rap, and Medusa. I mean, she is like my favorite great goddess. Amazing goddess. The blood from her right would heal, repel, and the blood from her left would take people out or kill them. But in the ancient Asclepian temple, and this is what Altani told me too, in the ancient Asclepian temple, which Asclepius was the god of healing, down in Epidaurus, which is like the Buddha of Greece, there are reliefs on the temple walls of Chiron on one side and Medusa on the other side. Now, that does not exist anymore. It's desecrated, probably by the Christians, but anyway.
So, in our Indian goddess, so we call Nikumbala Devi. So she has a face of light. And mostly we have a devotee in South India. And if you go to the Pondicherry, they have almost like 30 feet statue. And mother is sitting on the lion, and her face is a lion. Nikumbala Devi. So in Sri Lanka, the son of Ravana, he was a devotee of Nikumbala Devi. So until he was praying to her, no one was able to kill him. And they first destroy his sadhana, then they were able to kill him. So it's very similar.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Sanjay. He and I are like soul brothers from different mothers, but anyway. Okay, we'll move on here. Here's Durga. She's one of my faves too. I mean, she has a similar energy of Sekhmet. She's a protector goddess. She's tough. She's like Xena, the warrior princess, or Katniss in the Hunger Games. But she's very loving. She's very giving. But again, she just doesn't like arrogance or pride or ignorance. She's little Kali's kind of connected with her. And Kali wears that necklace of skulls, which represent the heads of ignorance that she's cut off. She wears them. Okay. This is my lineage, is yoga. Jesus, really, I love Jesus, although I've been saying as we go, it's okay. Now, my mom, Southern Baptist, I don't know, she may not. But anyway, this is kind of my lineage of Babaji and Yogananda, Jesus Christ. And this man is Sri Yukteswar, who is Yogananda's guru, who is a great Vedic astrologer. He wrote a little book called The Holy Science, which is about these yugas, the yuga theory of these evolutions of major evolutions. Like, for example, according to him, we're out of Kali Yuga, even though it doesn't seem like it. We moved into Dwapara Yuga around 1700 CE, which was the age of electricity, that's what it's called, which was when electricity was actually discovered around that time. Now, granted, we're just in this upward arc, moving towards the central sun, as he describes it, but we're still experiencing remnants of Kali Yuga, because we've been out of it 400 years or so. But still, there's the remnants, and Dwapara, the electrical age, can still be connected with like nuclear war and things like that. It's not all love and light. Even though we are ascending, we're moving back towards the central sun. So it's a very, very optimistic view. But rather than thinking of Kali Yuga, we're going to be in it for another, 2,000 years or something. I just don't buy that at all. Anyway, Sri Yukteswar, amazing. He kind of whispers in my ear every once in a while. Because actually, I have to confess, I'm not an astrologer. Actually, I'm a psychologist that uses astrology. There's a lot of difference there. Because most astrologers, it's changed a lot, but a lot of Vedic astrologers, they were so fatalistic that they didn't have what I call chart side manner, how to present material in a way to empower the client. Because as I mentioned the other day, you should always leave your client with a sense of faith and optimism and hope. And at the same time, you don't want to cheerlead them off a cliff, okay? So, it's like the analogy I use, it's kind of like you're going down a highway at 80 miles an hour due to your past life karma, and there's a pothole in the road. And due to your own effort and the grace of God and Goddess, you can put your foot on the brake. And you may hit that pothole still 10, 20 miles an hour, still may blow out a tire, but maybe, die. Or you may be able to stop that car totally. Although sometimes with fixed karmas, those are tough. You may still have to hit that pothole a little bit, but again, may not hurt too much. In the Vedas, I think, Sajay, it says something to the effect of avert the danger that is yet to come. And that's why when you go to India to get a reading, you're always asked about how can I help to heal this, because usually the astrologer, you go to the astrologer and they want to help you to heal challenges, that you have in your life. So, anyway. This is actually another book about this great year, this concept of the Yuga theory. Now, a little bit of things, I know you guys know all this, but I just want to mention the difference. In Vedic astrology, the ascendant or rising sign is called the Lagna. And it's like the root or the pillar on which the whole chart is based. So when I'm looking at a chart, the first thing I look at, and I am bilingual, I look at the ascendant. I look at the rising sign, both Western and Vedic, although I do emphasize Vedic astrology. Probably 80% of my work is more Vedic, but again, I like all the systems that I mentioned. But Carl Jung, because I like to bring in Jungian psychology, being a psychologist, he called it the persona. It's like the mask that we wear, that we present to the world. However, I think it was Robert Bly, who's done some amazing work with men's movement. He said, be careful with the mask that it doesn't get glued to your face. That you should be able to take it off and on. Don't allow it to just control you. Because, to me, Maya, which means illusion, actually, to me, Maya actually means like the social fabric and how we need to honor the social fabric, but also transcend it. But as one of my teachers from India said, if a mad elephant's coming at you, get the hell out of the way. Okay, moving on. How birds see the world. The way I show this is that whatever ascendant you have, tropical sidereal, that is going to indicate a lot how you're perceiving the world. The moon also, which is the most important in Vedic astrology, is the perceptual mind. It is also mother, as we know. So it's again how we perceive things. And quite often that can come through the mother, in good or difficult ways, I think you were talking about, a difficult, I don't know which one. I think it was it was on the moon. And I was thinking of Sylvia Plath, the famous poet. Because, I'll start quoting it. But she wrote a poem called The Moon and the Yew Tree. And the last line of the poem, if I can get it out, is the moon is my mother. She is not sweet like Mary. sometimes I wish I could believe in tenderness. Okay, enough of that. But anyway, she, to me, she is such an amazing poet, but she, died of suicide, I think in her 30s or something like that. But anyway, that poem is very powerful. It reminds me of what you were saying there about the signs, or the Rashis, Rashi means mass or heap. So it's like a Rashi or a sign is 30 degrees. But as we said, these signs are not in these nice little 30-degree bundles, so we have to allow for a little bit of a fudge factor there, One of my friends has done a lot of research on it and things, so anyway, more astronomical research. And so it's interesting. But still, we can use the signs in the 30-degree aspects. What it is in Vedic astrology, the signs are the 30 degrees, like in Western, but how would you say, this mass or heat kind of aspect too, with the signs. Let me see how I lost my train here of thought. I always jokingly say, I don't know if I'm having dementia or I'm in the eternal moment. Oh, I know what it was. Similar to Hellenistic astrology, someone was mentioning it the other day, it's whole sign house system. So each house is a complete sign. So if you have, say like me, you have Leo as your logna. And see, I have a lot of Leo in either chart, so I love to talk about me. Anyway, say you have Leo in your chart, but you have, say, for example, I have Pluto in the 12th house. But my Pluto stays in Leo in the Vedic system, and I do use the outer planets, And so it has a first house influence as well, even though it's 6 degrees away from the ascendant. But even in Western, they would consider that, still there. Yeah.
If I'm a Leo degree, Leo 2, rising, instead of going, the whole sign doesn't work if it's in the Leo versus the Virgo. Does that make sense? Isn't that right? Like if you're a later degree, would it really be 0 degrees, Leo?
If it was 29, like for example, Leo, then it was right on the cusp. So I have my Venus there, and Mercury is right there, that degree, so it's Sunday. So Western astrology is like 22, 23 degrees Virgo, but in Vedic it's 29 Leo. So again, you have to take into account both of the signs, I think, when those planets are Sunday. And this is true, in Western astrology as well. But this whole sign house system, there is another house system. When we get to houses, maybe I'll mention that more, but it's called Shripadi. Or there's another system called equal house system. It's called your Bhava chart. And it kind of does show more like these planets that may be in the 12th Rashi sign, but they're close to the ascendant. It will show in the Bhava chart that planet has first house influence. Does that make sense?
Narayan Bhava.
What's that?
Narayan.
Yeah.
Same Bhava.
So, I'm a southern man. It's great because Sanjay's a northern man. Now, actually, the northern chart really is much easier to read for tropical astrologers.
Yeah.
However, my teachers, my gurus were all from the south. Chakrapani, B.V. Raman, the most famous Vedic astrologer of the last century. So I've got all this Leo in either chart. I got a stellium of Leo tropically, and I got Leo rising, Mars, and Venus. Okay, I'll say more and more about my Leo. But anyway, the idea is that, this, I guess again, this chart is divided into these different segments of the signs. So for example, Kamala Harris, she actually has Gemini in both systems, I'm pretty sure, with Rahu or North Node on the ascendant. So for her, that would be her first house. Cancer would be the second, Leo would be the third, Virgo. So it moves in a clockwise fashion. So the idea is wherever your rising sign is, that becomes your first house, as it is in Western, but it's these whole sign houses. However, again, like I mentioned, I use the Bhava chart as well. But what it does show, this South Indian chart, is it's sometimes easier to see things from the moon. Because in Vedic astrology, there's also a Chandra Lagna, which is using the moon as the ascendant, which again is another level. You can even use Surya, the sun is the ascendant, or you can use it with whatever dasha you're running, that becomes the ascendant. So there's a lot of different rules to the game, but I try to go for profound simplicity, you know, because you can get so much into all these techniques. I call it digital astrology. You lose the soul, which is the myths, the sacred stories, the, you know, the rasa, as they would say, the flavor from India.
I got a question for you.
Go ahead.
Because in the West, we're doing astrology going counterclockwise.
Yeah.
This is going the.
I know, it's strange. Well, that's why, again, the North Indian's a little easier to read,
Yeah.
you know, I think. But again, like I said, I'm kind of fixed with all that Leo, so it's hard for me to make changes in mine. But what is similar is the corners are the mutable signs, you know, Gemini, Virgo, Sag, Pisces. And Kamala, the one thing that's beautiful too about her chart, and we were talking about this the other day, the moon in her chart is in Ashwini, the divine healers. They're bringing healing energy down to the earth plane. And I realize she has her baggage, all of them do. But Joe Biden also, moon in Ashwini. Whereas Donald Trump, moon in Scorpio, Jeshta is a demon. Ashwini's a deva. So, again, well, if you have your moon there, it's not that you'll be a demon. No, keep an eye on it. Actually, it's so funny. I was gonna lecture on my memoir I'm working on. I said, no, I'm not gonna do this. But I'll tell you one or two stories real quick. How I found out about Sedona. I was at a UFO conference back in 1975 in Kansas City, Missouri. I know. And I went to the University of Missouri, Kansas City I was working on a bachelor's degree there. And there was a woman over there with a table, you know, had on it psychic readings or intuitive readings. And I'm looking over at her, you know, she's really beautiful, red hair, you know, gorgeous woman. And she says, come here. I'm looking around, you know. She goes, no, you come here. And I'm thinking to myself, God, she's going to try to hustle me. And I don't have much money, I'm a college kid. Finally, the third time, she goes, no, come here. And she goes, I have two things to tell you. But the first thing, actually three things. The first thing is I'm not going to charge you. The second thing is you have 2 guardian angels. And I'm thinking, God, I'm really special. And she says, yeah, you need 2 to keep you out of trouble. And then the second thing she said to me was, someday you should go to Sedona. So, weird.
Yeah.
She was good. She used to have seances. She had a seance one at my brother's house, you know, so I knew it wasn't rigged. And you could literally see mists and stuff in the room. It was really intense. But anyway, she's good. I tried to Google her. I don't think she's still in the body, though. But it was funny. I was living in her house the last few months before I moved to California back in '77. And we just had a platonic relationship, which is good. You don't want to ruin a good friendship, right? But I was living on the top floor of her big house, and one night I'm laying there, and all of a sudden I feel these hands massaging me. You know, and it's just this really subtle but beautiful feeling, but creepy. So I go down, her name is Pat Gillard. I go down, Pat, I said, I had this weird experience up there, and you know, but they're in the upper loft, where I felt these hands touching me. She goes, oh, don't worry, that's just Harry. He's friendly. Harry the friendly ghost. Right? Okay. Now, who was I talking to? Who was I talking to last night? The photographer. Is it Dan?
Ben.
Ben.
Garrett.
He's not here? No.
I don't see him.
Okay, so that's good, because I had a question. I was going to give away my free book, but we're going to put it in the raffle instead.
Oh, okay.
But the question is, what city in the world has the most fountains second to Rome, Italy? Anybody have an idea? Maybe now. Well, there is a connection there, though. I'll tell you the connection. What? No, Kansas City.
Oh, yeah.
Right, bro. You know why?
Country Club Plaza?
Because, yeah, and all these fountains. Yeah, you've been there. It's beautiful, you know.
What is it?
But it's called the Country Club Plaza in Kansas City, Missouri. Most of it's in Missouri, a little bit in Kansas. But anyway, the point is why is that the Italians, the mafia, lived in Kansas City and ran Vegas from KC.
Oh.
So they loved their fountains.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to get their hands dirty with all the craziness going on in Vegas because they were with their families and everything. So anyway, that's why it has so many vowels.
Wow.
True story. Although I do make stuff up sometimes. Like, for example, I had a client come in the other day in my office with a duck on his head. And I said, "Can I help you?" And the duck said, "Yeah, can you get this guy off my ass?" Wait, hold on. I got a million of them, so don't get me upset. I did actually get hired once by the Scottsdale Astrological Society to do stand-up comedy at their and actually it was a paid gig. They gave me $100 at a Christmas party. And I loved it, but they never invited me back. I'm still looking for that second gig. Okay. Well, you know, I had this thing, I was going to do a thing with Philip Sendra, you know, who's a great comedian, amazing. I've sold so much material from Philip. He's a West tropical astrologer, but he also does heliocentric astrology. Amazing guy. But we were going to do this thing at UAC called Dueling Zodiacs. We had a whole thing, you know, we had all this material. One of them is that, you know, I was in the bathroom the other day, wasn't here, it was, you know, a place where they had like urinals, several of them. And I get into this conversation with, you know Glenn Perry? Well, Glenn's he's a brilliant psychological astrologer, but he doesn't care for sidereal much. And so we're sitting there getting into a little bit of an argument about tropical sidereal. And all of a sudden, I look down at my shoes getting all wet. And I realized he was 23 degrees off. Okay. I tried to explain that to him. He didn't go for it. Planets, in India, they're called grahas. And graha means to grasp or to seize. You know, it's like a seizure. Sometimes these planets, you feel like you're having a seizure when they come along, especially like Uranus, because I do use the outer planets. I call myself a neo-Vedic astrologer. And I love the asteroids as well. To me, it's just all awesome. It's like a big ocean of vast wisdom and knowledge, and we each have our little thimble full of it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let me move on here. I know we've got, 10 minutes left? I'll try to move on. Slide says, I don't know what's happening, but perhaps we should have our charts done on a regular basis. This is when Mars was getting really close to Earth. When it's retrograde, you know, I understand astronomically the planets are closer to Earth. That's why they're brighter and all that, but astronomy is not my strong suit. So anyway, move on. I'll just mention a couple of planets because I know we don't have much time. The first one, Surya, or the sun, is really considered very important in the Vedic astrology. Don't get me wrong, but the moon takes precedence. The reason is that the sun's changing signs every 30 days or 29 days, whatever, and whereas the moon's changing signs every couple of days. So it's much more sensitive to time. And then the ascendant, of course, is changing on average about 2 hours. So the rising sign and moon and sun, I call it the Holy Trinity, like in Western astrology. But I give a little more emphasis to the ascendant, and then second, really strong in the moon, and then third, the sun. Now, granted, if you're like me and you have sun in Virgo, tropical, but sun in Leo, sidereal, I go with the sun being the most important. All right, moving on. That joke didn't work. My family has heard my jokes so many times that they just number them.
Oh no.
So if you say 23, it gets a big laugh. 32, no laugh whatsoever. Okay, Surya sometimes is pictured riding a chariot being pulled by 7 horses. It's interesting because Apollo, the sun god in Greek mythology, is also rides in a chariot pulled by 7 horses. And I think the 7 horses could represent the 7 chakras, something like that. 7
planets?
Yeah, 7 planets, good point. Yeah, the main planets.
The division of the sun's light into the
Now, what am I saying here? Oh, I can read it off here. See again, let me see. Oh yeah, Surya. The sun has yellow eyes, according to Parashara, who, actually, this is Parashara. I will hand it around, but I promise you, you gotta promise me to get it back to me. Okay. Now you'll see that Parashara also is connected with beautiful energies. Sometimes also Patanjali is pictured like this. There's some kind of connection with Chidambaram, I think, with that temple of Chidambaram. But anyway, Parashara is considered the god connected with astrology, Patanjali was more of the Yoga Sutras, connection with the Yoga Sutras. But there are these great teachers. But according to Parashara, and again, this energy came through the gods. There's a beautiful book called The Astrology of the Seers by Dr. David Frawley, which is a good intro book. And he said that Parashara just cognized it, came through him. And then Vedic astrology is based on Shruti, of the oral tradition of hearing it. That's why it's good to have a teacher live. Of course, now with Zoom and everything, you still get the energy, but sometimes it's even stronger, of course, if you're in the room. It's kind of like with yagis. And I have to say, Sanjay is a priest, really. You are a priest, because he puts on great yagis, and he'll be doing some in Sedona, I'm sure, coming up
We
soon.
are doing on October 12th,
Oh.
Bhakti House.
Okay, where's it going to be at?
Bhakti House, October 12th.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he's amazing, you know, so anyway, because I think doing these yagis, you can pay priests to do them for you, granted. But to me, it's kind of like you have to be really fully present to win. You know, if you really want to get the full darshan from it, the full energy, it's good to just be there and allow that smoke just to fill you and then take it up to heaven just to release, you know. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, moving on.
My friend in Santa Fe called me Rebel Pandit.
You are, you know. And he's so humble he doesn't call himself that, but he is that. Okay, so Surya is pure and clean of habits. He's Pitta in nature. Fire is what it's called in Ayurveda. In constitution, intelligent, masculine, but tends toward baldness, you know. Now, I have Sun and Leo in the first house, and I'm not bald, although there is the receding hairline. And my remedial measure for that is good hair products. Okay, another picture of the sun. You know, of course, it rules the sign of Leo. It's exalted in Aries. It's happy, of course, in Sag and the fire signs. Tends to have a little more challenge in Libra, although, again, the beautiful thing about that, it can teach humility and humbleness. You have to, of course, look at the whole chart. Other significations, I know you all know this. This is the handout I gave you on the planets that you have. It's like a little planets at a glance. Now, if you take my class, you have to memorize that table. No, just kidding. It's kind of, you know, it's easy to look at. Let me see, what did I do with mine? Oh, there it is. What it is on it, just to make it simple, is that you have the planet here, the sun, Surya, tells you like I'll read it, this is easier to do this way. It tells you first the ruling sign, of course, the sun is Leo. And then it gets into general attributes, which again are some of these significations that are on the board here. But I've got a few minutes left, so I need to move on. But then the moon there, and it goes down and talks about physical attributes like health. It talks about the Ayurvedic nature, like the sun is a Pitta, fire planet. Its exalted position. It's also Nitra position, which is around 10 degrees Aries and Libra. And then Digbala means where it gets strong, directional strength, and that's in the 10th house. That's when the sun is at midday. It's in its power. And then finally, gemstones, we recommend the use of gemstones like ruby, garnet, are connected with the sun, carnelian, things like that. And then even the deities, Shiva is connected with the sun, as well as Agni, the god of fire. So anyway, you can look at that. It's out of my book, but I thought I would just make a copy for you guys. And then I did another one for the houses as well. And again, I find, you know, there's 70-80% overlap. There is the Hindu flavor that comes into play. Okay?
Is this your book?
What's that?
Is this from your book?
Yeah, not chakra. At the back, it's like an appendix. Now, let me see, we'll move on here. Okay, this is kind of a picture of Surya too. And that's in one of the temples in Egypt, where that sun was just coming through. And actually that Sekhmet chapel, the reason I loved it too, there was a hole in the top of the chapel, and the light would come right through on her statue. It would just light her up. It was crazy. That's another seal at Mohenjo-Daro, which the Indus Valley is connected with that, of Shiva, or Rudra, which is the ancient name of Shiva. There we go. There's where the sun was. I was trying to open up my heart. But anyway, a whole other story. It's in my book, but I did lay in the King's Chamber in the sarcophagus during the harmonic convergence.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
So it's a whole other story, but you have to get the
Wow.
book. Okay. The other thing is Chandra, the moon. Chandra means to delight or rhythm, you know, it's movement. Now, what's weird a little bit, and I have a little bit of a problem with it, I think it's the patriarchy again taking over a bit, but in Vedic astrology, all the planets are male. Although, to me, I mean, it's obvious the moon is feminine energy, and all the planets have male, female, so anyway. But the moon is the most important. And one of the names for the moon, actually, is Shashi, which means like a rabbit, because it's hopping around the chart. Let's see here. The moon is watery, of course. It can be Kapha or Vata. Kapha is earth and water. Vata is air. She's very intuitive, learned, has a round body, voluptuous, luminous countenance, and sweet speech. But she is changeable and moody. And it's funny because Carl Jung said within each man is this anima, this inner feminine, you know? And he said, the issue is, and this is why I was saying, Merriman, that you're helping men to grow up too, besides women. You know, you're acknowledging, or and there's so many great men in here, and I was surprised. It's usually 90% women, but this is great. But anyway, there's that whole thing connected with honoring the feminine. Jung said that for most men, our anima, our inner feminine, is like a 16-year-old bratty, moody little girl. And we have to help her grow up into a Sophia, into a goddess, wisdom, you know. You know, there is you kind of come back for New Year's, or no, Halloween. We have a party here in Sedona. Come dressed as you were in a past life. That's smart. Problem is that there's 4 St. Francis, there's 3 Mary Magdalenes, and they fight over who's the right one, you know?
Cleopatra's.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's
All
a
the
big
way
one. You know? And so, you know, my daughter, I said, you know, it's we're doing this, come dressed as you were in a past life, and my 22-year-old Ari goes, no, Dad, it's come as you are in a future life. That's interesting. And then Sophia, the goddess of wisdom, my singer-songwriter out of Nashville, she goes, no, Dad, just get a life. Because what happened, a street person walked in and he got best original costume. Okay, moving on. All right, that didn't quite work. There's Shashi, the rabbit. And again, these significations are on your handout, so I won't go through them, you know, but again, it's nice to have the moon exalted. It's nice to have the moon waxing towards a full moon generally. Although if it's a balsamic moon, like in my case, can be a little moody, or a new moon. But Dimitri George wrote that great book, Mysteries of the Dark Moon, which I'd highly recommend to anyone that has the moon, you know, close to the sun or some, you know, born under the new moon energy, because it's very powerful. Okay, here's just a picture of goddess. Luna, of course, the name for the Luna too, rules the sign of Cancer, exalted in Taurus. There's the daughter in shot. His mom. Now I love this cartoon. The doctor says, two ways about it, Mr. Levon. You've acquired a moon. Would you like me to remove it? And he says, I don't know. It distracts me, but my wife finds it very romantic. Okay, moving on. Relationship compatibility is a whole other topic I could get into. You know, my, this is, anyway, you know, I took off, one of my things I love photography, every once in a while I get it right. But this is, this actually, okay, I was going to have this, maybe I could think of a little prize for this one too. Anyway, maybe a 5-minute session or something. Anyway, looking for love in all the wrong places. Now, if you're looking at these 3 vignettes, where do you think you'd find true love at? Any idea?
Definitely mine.
I think in the shoe, because that's where you find your soulmate, right? This is my ex-wife and I. My favorite picture of us. No, actually. Okay, you got it? As my teacher Chakrapati said, you know, until one spiritual path does not even begin until you face the shadow. So you start to face the shadow. She taught me a lot. She wrote me a beautiful poem called No, a Word of Love. She's a lovely girl. Anyway, Nakshatras, I've already mentioned that. Great book. David Frawley, his introduction. I had one person review it. They said, the beauty of this book is the introduction. That would hurt. That would hurt. The decans, you know, are also an Egyptian, are actually Hellenistic, the 36 segments. So they're similar, almost. You know, they're these 10 segments, like you were mentioning, it's a little easier to follow those. Okay, we'll move on here. I mentioned electional astrology. There's also Prashna or Hori astrology. When someone comes to you, you look at the chart. I remember looking at a chart, and this guy was coming for a session. It was like this freaking amazing chart for wealth. And it was one, I won't mention his name, but anyway, it was somebody who was very, very famous. Anyway, the chart showed it at the moment as much as his chart showed it. So it's called Prashna or Hori astrology. Electional astrology, usually what people ask me to do is set a date for weddings or surgery. There must be some connection there. All right, get in trouble here. Vocational astrology. Okay, this is called the fortune teller because, you know, the word charlatan comes from the Chaldeans, the ancient Chaldeans, because astrology can be abused, as we all know. There's a real shadow side to astrology. In my book, I've written a whole chapter called The Astrologer's Shadow, Challenges in the Consulting Room. Now, my wife, no. Yeah, I blew that one. Okay. I have to give credit to my ex-wife because she told me this joke. Okay, real quick. What it is that this guy was, you know, this is in the Bay Area, San Francisco. He had just got his PhD, let's just say it's me, and he is looking, trying to get work, and he can't find any work, so he sees an ad in the paper that says, wanted zoo attendant. And he's thinking, sounds like a cool job, so he goes down to the zoo, and the owner of the zoo said, no, it's not a zoo attendant, what we need. What happened is our gorilla died. And it's gonna take us a month or two to get a new gorilla from Africa. So what we want you to do is get into this gorilla suit and pretend that you're a gorilla. So he's thinking, well, I get paid, you know, as many bananas as I want to eat. Hey, I'll take the job. So he gets into the gorilla suit and starts dancing around, and the kids are clapping. Everybody's so happy. But what happens is he jumps on this rope with a tire and starts swinging higher and higher until the rope snaps. And he goes flying off and lands right in the lion's den. And he looks up at the lion. And he starts screaming to everybody, help, help, somebody help me. And the lion lunges at him and says, you better shut up or you're going to get us both fired. My ex-wife told me that joke. She actually used to perform with Robert Shields, you know, and Robin Williams down in Fisherman's Wharf. She was a mime, and she was also breathed fire. Anyway, scary. She didn't do it too many times in our relationship. But anyway, every once in a while. Okay, I'm going to get in trouble here. Medical astrology. Again, we can go into all that, the Ayurveda, and it's connected with the different humors in Western astrology. Remedial measures. One that's quite used often in Vedic astrology is gemstones. You know, like there's gemstones for each of the planets, which is at the bottom of that planet, glance. The challenge with gemstones is people think they're going to buy this gemstone and life's going to totally turn around. Now, granted, it may help, it may help. I'm not saying it doesn't. I wear gemstones, I get malas. One of my friends, Tim Terektar, who was a mountain astrologer, publisher of that, he loved to do cartoons. He had this cartoon of this guy like me with all these gems and everything, and the caption read, has a bad Vedic chart. All right. Okay, anyway, that's just one way. But bringing back in Sanjay here, yagyas or pujas are so powerful. Yagya is like a fire ceremony. And this is one of the priests out of Kerala, southern India. Very powerful. And this is my backyard. Okay. And I know we have to stop. So, anyway, thank you.